Alex, thank you so much for joining us here today. Now, for the viewers at home, could you please tell us a bit more about your role at Sharegain?
I'm the general counsel at Sharegain. I cover everything legal, both within EMEA and US. I work equally with the internal teams and our clients and counterparties to ensure everything legal or regulatory is, let's say, going according to plan,
Yeah.
and making sure that we meet not only our regulatory obligations, but equally we help our clients and our counterparties and our partners meet their own obligations in turn and help them navigate the legal landscape.
One that's quite complex and evolving. But before we get into that, actually, I want to explore a bit further and work out what makes running a fully paid lending product program so burdensome in the beginning.
From a client's perspective, obviously, especially if you're in the wealth management business, if you're an institution that has never had a fully paid lending program, you would have to implement legal frameworks, get up to speed on regulatory requirements, obviously work with your counsel and through us with the counterparties to make sure that everything is implemented correctly. And that takes a lot of juggling, I would say, between various frameworks.
I can imagine. And how does Sharegain mitigate some of these burdens, especially when it comes to running that fully paid securities lending program?
Sure. I mean, obviously, we help the clients run that program. We build on the experience that we have with a variety of other clients in various markets. And from a legal and regulatory perspective, at the very least, we can act as a sounding board. We can build on that empirical knowledge. We can help the clients anticipate some regulatory issues. Obviously, we have our ear to the industry, to various legal updates as well. So while they still have to do that legwork and work with their counsel and internally do their own assessment, we are there to shorten that time frame and build on that experience, which is invaluable in this space.
Incredible. So it really does seem like a kind of support network that you can offer them. Can you tell us a bit more about that legal support that you can offer your clients?
Sure. It's, the full white glove approach, so to speak. We work with our clients. We, hold their hand as much as needed and assist as much as needed from the very first stages when we discuss our agency authority and the agency agreement, all the way through the implementation of their needs. And those do change. Sometimes they have to deal with different borrowers in various jurisdictions. Sometimes it's just the regulation applicable to the lender might change. And sometimes they really just want to know how others are doing it and what would be the market view. And as an agent, we would be able to give them that market view, right? Because we serve a variety of clients with different needs.
Now, with that broad client base, what is the kind of advantage of Sharegain's expertise in this industry? Because Sharegain's been around for quite some time, and I imagine you've got the kind of legal nous to kind of supplement quite a broad range of clients. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, we, I kind of alluded to this in my previous answer. We build on that empirical knowledge, not only in EMEA, but obviously in the US as well. And we can bring that experience to the table. The market is evolving. Obviously, in the US, it's been around for quite some time, but it's only recently, I would say, opening up to wealth managers that want to break that fully paid lending barrier. And, that goes hand in hand with our democratized securities lending model, right? We've been doing it for longer in Europe and in other jurisdictions, but that worldwide experience is invaluable. And, those trends overlap wherever you are in the world. So we can build on that. We can equally bring to the table whatever regulatory knowledge and coupled with technology, obviously, and working closely with the product team to do that. Kind of on a one-stop shop, if you want. And I think it gives a certain comfort to clients to know, okay, we've been there, you've done it, you've seen it. And also we have those contacts, right? Like if you want to ask a borrower, look, what do you think about this? Should we take this approach? Do we need a guarantee? Or, I don't know, various examples of of legal needs, we have those relationships with those borrowers, right? So
Yeah.
we would be able to write an email, pick up the phone, and say, look, this is a client or another client that has this issue. Remember the time we've discussed this. So you kind of build on that ecosystem and you make your client feel like they're not just coming at it alone, especially when your wealth manager's going against decades of institutional lending that you're trying to break into, right?
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of that kind of building and continuing a relationship, we're certainly seeing that now that technology is evolving at the speed that it is, regulations themselves are compounding in cost and time and, just blood, sweat, and tears. So really, how can Sharegain ensure that your clients are fully regulated, up to date when the technology is moving so quickly?
Our technology is meant to assist our clients with their regulatory needs. So
Right.
already, it's the eternal question of build versus buy, I guess. How long would it take you to do that in-house while as you say, the regulatory trends are trying to keep up, or honestly, the court system is trying to keep up with the regulatory trends, with the technology, right? As we know, often technology runs ahead in many fields, not just ours. So having that ability to save time and cost to an extent, right? Because, quintessential time is money, I suppose. I would think that's invaluable from a client's perspective, right? And you have the ability to go back to your internal decision makers, to your board, to your regulator, and say, look, I'm working with Sharegain, a regulated agent that has experience, that's already been approved by the largest regulators in the respective jurisdictions, for example, FINRA in the US. And you are able to say, I have a trusted partner. I am able to cut that short, as opposed to now I have a learning curve. I have to figure all this out. And by the time I do, maybe new regulations come along, or I need a new framework. So that agility and ability to work with our client and often adjust, because what we have today may not 100% fit the client's needs, right? So then, because you get that white glove approach that I mentioned, you are able to adjust, tweak to an extent, and if you need to meet those needs, we work with our clients on a case by case basis.
Amazing. Now, speaking of working with your clients on a case-by-case basis, you've really leveraged the amount of expertise Sharegain has in helping offer that white glove experience. Can you tell the viewers, some of the kind of more incredible regulations that have come down through the pipeline before that you have helped navigate them through? Because the industry really does seem to be in a position of flux. It'd be great to hear some of those anecdotes of what's transpired.
I mean, look, it depends on the market you're looking at. If you take the US, for example, right, you always have the concern, the 15C3 concerns that are
Yeah.
particularly painful for our retail-facing clients. So when you offer a fully paid lending program to your retail consumers in the US, right, so consumer protection is key. And for wealth managers in particular, there are specific requirements that we can accommodate. We work with partners, whether they need, trust arrangements or they need introductions to various, collateral managers we have relationships with, or simply if they just want to know how others do it. And that's key. It's important, right? By comparison, perhaps the more traditional fully paid lending, a lot of players might have those structures in-house within their group. So, it wouldn't be kind of the same fair game, so to speak, if you're a wealth manager trying to really break into this and you need that trusted partner to help you
Yeah.
navigate.
Absolutely perfect. Now, the industry is in a slight state of flux, especially over in the American markets. There's a big event on the horizon. Can you tell our viewers a bit more about it and what that's going to mean for your clients and the industry as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen quite a few regulatory changes, but particularly to the securities lending industry, right? Rule 10C1, SEC Rule 10C1 is definitely making some waves, and a lot of our clients or prospects are expressing already concerns about the breadth of the scope of this regulation. So we are definitely aware of that. We keep up to date with the various, regulatory and legal updates. But we're ready whenever the SEC decides that, the implementation date is here to stay, and whether they push it or not, that remains to be seen, especially in light of recent court challenges. We're ready. If our clients need it, if they have concerns or questions, we will adapt to that. But from a technological perspective, from a regulatory know-how perspective, we're here to help.
Brilliant. Now, there's one thing that financial services hates, and that is uncertainty. But what they do quite like when it comes to their technology is flexibility.
Mm.
And so I'm quite curious, how can Sharegain help these clients navigate this uncertainty by providing that element of flexibility?
Sure. I mean, clients come in different shapes and sizes. They have different legal structures, needs, some custody with an external custodian, some self-clear. We have that ability to adjust to those models, and our technology can meet those needs on a kind of a white glove approach, so to
Ah,
speak.
okay. So you're custodian agnostic as well?
Correct. So we are not a custodian per se. Again, we're a securities lending agent. That means we can work with any custodian as long as they work with us and as long as the clients require us to do so.
And I'm curious to think, are there any common trends that you see across all these regions where, okay, this is going to become common practice across all regions, and this is where your experience across multiple regions can help?
It will depend on political differences, and administrations change all over the world, right?
Yeah.
But there is a common thread that regulators tend to have in our experience worldwide, and that generally is consumer protection to a certain level, right? Or client protection, depending on which jurisdiction you are. So essentially, especially when it comes to retail fully paid lending, right? The retail being the key element, there is a level of public policy concern that regulators, therefore the state, the government should have, and the public should have towards the retail customers' knowledge when it comes to, you know,
Because it
agreeing
scales
to a fully paid
wildly,
program.
doesn't it?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's also about educating, right?
Yeah.
Because in our experience, the trends that we see is that generally it's the concern that the retail consumers are not protected. But then if you look at how fully paid lending, securities lending is meant to work, there's a collateral aspect, sometimes over collateralization. There's a level of trust. There's a level of the quality of the counterparties that you work with, where essentially sometimes you could even be seen as putting your clients or customers in a better position than they were as fully paid securities holders in the beginning without securities lending. So it's really a matter of educating. It's a matter of looking around the world at what worked with other regulators. So that's on the consumer protection aspect. And hand in hand, I think transparency is a big one. You've alluded to 10C1, we've discussed it, but at the heart of it is reporting. It's really telling the markets, information about the various loans and the technicalities. Reporting is a transparency tool at the end of the day, and accountability.
So looking to the future, we've talked about uncertainty already, but when we see at elements of scale, so for instance, you work with clients at a global level, what's that like, and how can Sharegain offer up the same level of white glove support to institutions that might be several thousand people big to, as you said, the smaller kind of wealth managers?
We work equally with all kinds of clients, right? We take a personalized, a bespoke approach per each client. Again, we do not act as a custodial agent, which means we do not pull any client assets together. Every single client gets the same treatment, and we believe strongly in that, helping even the most novel wealth manager try to break into the fully paid lending market and help them navigate that and liaise with the right borrowers, to partnering with some of the biggest institutions and helping wherever their needs are, from technology or otherwise.
Perfect. And last question to wrap up, the regulatory landscape is always evolving. And now it's not just evolving, it's compounding and becoming increasingly expensive. How can Sharegain help these organizations, help these institutions navigate not just the complexity that we were talking about before, but also the expense?
Sure. I mean, obviously, they need to do their own legwork and talk to their counsel and assess their own regulatory and legal needs. But just knowing what questions to ask, knowing what the trends are, knowing what to anticipate, and explaining what the pain points have been would help target those questions, right, and save time. And we work all the time with external counsel or advisors and address questions about our program. And in doing so, we support those needs that our clients have.
Perfect. Alex, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.